Hello and very good day to all viewers. I am Sharifa Farisha, a representative for my group to introduce the study, which is the impact of COVID-19 to Malaysian firm economy. So our group consists of 5 members and each member has studied at least one impact and will be representing the content respectively. A special thanks also to our evaluator, Assistant Professor Dr. Tan Chin Kan, that made this study possible. So our presentation will start with introduction, then data and discussion of the impacts, and eventually we'll end with conclusion. Part introduction. Since the outbreak of COVID-19, the global economy has been heavily affected. So according to the Dr. Sam Flanders, the second blow to the pandemic is the economies of the world. How does this happen? So first thing first, we must keep in mind that economy is the study which concern about production, distribution, and consumption of the goods and services. Due to the outbreak, the resources of these three processes become scarce as ever. So this is all because the businesses is mainly interrupted with the safety policy or social distances policy. In Malaysia, according to the Department of Statistics Malaysia, it was estimated that Malaysia has lost 22.8 billion in economic growth due to the pandemic. The Movement Control Order or MCO implemented has caused multiple ripple effects and also caused major economic disruption, and economy's activities were forced to cut back.
Hi, I'm Zaida. So right now we are going to go to the impacts toward the firm due to the COVID-19 in Malaysia. So the first impact that we are going to discuss is declines in revenue. So as you can see, from the Department of Statistics Malaysia, they shown that 67.8% companies stated no sales, no revenue during the MCO. And this sales area is the most affected area in the business, which is 45% to the 53.3% increase due to the MCO implementation. So for the declines in revenue, we analyzed there are two factors that affecting it, which is lost source of income and the financial disruption. So for the lost source of income, people lost their job. So people lost their source of income. So people will spend less because they want to save money. So there are no spending in the market. So that will cause the drop in the cash flow in the market. So that causes the drop in revenue, which is the drop in the sale because people not buying the product from the firm. So that will affect on the firm supply because their financials is not stable, they're not able to make the payment, the delay in the payment, so they are delayed in supply. So the second one is the financial distraction, which is when the firm, the employer is cannot afford to pay the salary to the employee. So they have to fire the employees. So there are less workers. When there are less workers, less production of the product. So that causes the drop in the revenue. The same as growth, the overhead cost increase. So the profit of the firm will decrease. That causes the drop in the revenue. The second impact, the fall in the demand. So as you can see, there are fall in the demand when the MCO, the Movement Control Order, is being implemented in Malaysia, which is 43% for the large company and 43% for the medium and small company. So there are two factors that also affecting on the fall in the demand to the firm, which is the cut on spending and the fall in the number of consumer or customer. So for the cut on spending, when the people cut on spending, they try not to spend more, they try to save, there are no money, flow in the market, the demand in the market drop because no people buying the product, so the demand will drop. Because when the consumer income decrease, the demand also decrease. So for the second one is the fall in the number of consumer. For example, during the MCO, there are restrictions of the people going in and out, right? So a lot of shop closed, so there are no customer going to their shop because they have to close their shop. So that caused the fall in demand because there are no customer, there are no people who going to buy the product. So the demand of the product will fall, that cause the drop in the production of the product, and that we call the shortfall in the capacity.
We'll proceed with the third economic impact of COVID-19 to the firm or companies in Malaysia, which is the disruption of supply chain. According to Lemers and Verkerka in their research in 1999, they conclude that supply chain can be defined as all activity involved in delivering a product from raw material to the manufacturing the final product to the customers. And according to Cambridge Dictionary, supply chain is a system which involves people, organization, getting a product from the place it is made, which later involve distribution, retailers of the product to the customers. Supply chain of firms and companies in Malaysia has been disrupted through external and domestic factor during the COVID-19 pandemic. And for the external factor, supply chain of firm in Malaysia is mainly disrupted due to the lockdown of largest and main trading and investment partner countries. For example, China, United States, and other European countries. Due to the government policies of these countries in order to minimize the transmission of COVID-19, that leads to restriction and shutdown of companies in, for example, in China, which is the main and #1 trading partner country of Malaysia. This has caused a manufacture and service sector in Malaysia to grow slower during the pandemic, as this sector in Malaysia relies on the raw materials from China. As there is challenge to have sufficient raw material for the business in the supply chain, the supply chain is disrupted in large and listed company and also worse for the SME company in Malaysia. This has been clarified in the Department of Statistics Malaysia report that 21.5% of the company and business firm face the challenges of shortage of raw material supply during the pandemic, to be specified during the MCO period, which has led to the domestic factor that disrupt the supply chain of firms. To flatten the curve of COVID-19 pandemic, Malaysia has implemented a movement control order (MCO), which has restriction for travel from or to other country and even to cross-state in Malaysia. This restriction also encompassed the economy sector, where the MCO has put a limit to the operational capacity, where there is minimal operation capacity is allowed throughout the MCO period to follow the social distancing order. This has affected the manufacturing activity for both SME and large listed companies. And along with this restriction, the capacity operational has slowed down to slow down the supply of product and goods nationwide. The next factor that triggered the supply chain of firm in Malaysia is the fear of shortage in the market. Fear of shortage for certain products or goods in the market can cause panic buying or stockpiling efforts. Although the government has reassured that supply of products and goods in the country is sufficient for the nation during the MCO, panic buying still happen. For example, fear of shortage for essential product in the market, such as foods and medical product, can also supply chain, as there is companies have yet or unable to allocate or redesign their resources and direction of business in short period due to the rigidness of the resources.
As COVID-19 spread, it already caused most small businesses to shut down or temporarily close. And nearly all of these closures, they are all related to the pandemic. Small businesses and firms, they're likely to suffer a better blow because they tend to be more fragile because they have few resources to adapt with the changing landscape of market and digitalization. So the SME Association of Malaysia, they stated that up to 1/4 of Malaysia's small and medium enterprises, they are at risk of closure because due to the sharp drop in revenue, as 56.56% of them report that the firms have zero revenue during the movement control order. Plus, the survey also highlighted that in August, among 1,730 members mentioned that 20% of the respondents, they are considering to shuttering their business in the next 6 months. So the revenue volatility really affecting the firms, especially those with limited cash liquidity. They are forced to halt their production and services. And even though the government has implemented many package, many stimulus, many initiatives to help these small businesses, but 47.9% of the SMEs, they say that the pre-heightened stimulus package cannot ease their burden, cannot really secure the business from closure. Next, we're going to move on to the next slide. So, what happened if there are lots of firms and SMEs that are closed? So one thing we need to understand and we need to remember that SMEs, they are the backbone of the Malaysian economy. They are contributing 40% of the country's GDP and they are dominating 2/3 of the Malaysian workforce. So even though this is why we need to understand what's going to happen, there's going to be economic downtrend if there's a lot of firms and SMEs are closed. So why there are so many risks of firms and SMEs closures? Because the SME, especially the small businesses, the youth-led businesses, firms, and the new businesses, they are struggling to cope and to withstand the impact of pandemic and on the business continuity, on the domestic and global supply chain, because fall in demand because of COVID-19. So they need to halt their production, they need to stop their business, they need to cut down their business. So why this is happening? So based on the finding, why there are a lot of freeze of firms and SMEs closure? Because the first thing that we understand is that because they have lower cash. So when they have little cash on hand, especially the youth-led firms and the new businesses, even before the pandemic began, they have lower cash in hands. So when the pandemic storm came, they have to dramatically cut down their expenses. They need to take additional debt, they need to take additional loan, and even because all of this, they may even declare bankruptcy. In Europe, the study says that almost 10% of the European SMEs say that they have a fear that they might be declared bankruptcy in the next half year if the COVID-19 pandemic still is going on.
Hi, my name is Nur Najiha. Moving on to the next impact, which is decreases in labor and labor productivity. During the situation of COVID-19, many companies have decided to terminate or lay off some of their employee. And some of the company also decided to pay the salary of their employee with reduction. Retrenchment is the situation where the employer decided to lay off some of their employee because they have become surplus to the needs of the company, or in another word, they have become a burden to the company as the company may not have enough money to pay their salary. A retrenchment is indeed a disadvantage for both company and the employee, as the company will short of staff and then the employee will not have any job. However, in order to help and stabilize the economy of the company, this action really need to be taken. For example, the famous airline AirAsia Berhad, according to Sir Tan Sri Tony Fernandez, they have retrenched 10% of their 24,000 staff. He also said that despite the staff doing nothing wrong, they need to be laid off because during this situation, the aviation sector are now struggling with to come back to overcome their economic issue. Moreover, with no more people want to traveling during this situation, the aviation sector kind of operating in a smaller scale, which need lesser staff than before. However, Sir Tony Fernandez also said that they will try their best in order to rehire their staff and give them new jobs. The short in staff is indeed a problem to the company. However, in order to bring the economy of the company back to normal, it is really need to be considered. Other than that, the level of product, there are companies which apply working from home to reduce the spread of COVID-19. Despite that, there is a significant drop in the level of productivity of the employee when they are working from home. as there are many other distraction at home, the work done may not be very well done, which will then eventually affect the performance of the company, and then may lead to the disorganization of the company itself. According to the Department of Statistics Malaysia, the productivity of the labours has declined during the critical and challenging with COVID-19. It is important to know that during this critical situation, it is very crucial for the employee to work very hard in order to help the company to get back their initial economy before COVID-19.
I will continue the presentation on the sixth impact, which is cash flow distraction. From the definition, cash flow in firm refer to the operational turnover of business and its ability to generate revenues. Cash considered as the blood of an enterprise and the necessary support for its daily operation, which means firm without cash, firm or firm with cash difficulties will not operate in long run. So operation generate through cash inflow and outflow. Firm with financial difficulties will face many challenges and issues. So we can say that firm with cash flow problems will have many concerns and financial issues. So pandemic and MCO also has made a ripple effects which lead to the cash flow distraction. So cash flow arises due to the low income, but low income in pandemic arises from the implementation of MCO. Next is the data on the cash flow problem. From the survey made by Department of Statistics Malaysia, it is said that most small medium enterprises (SMEs) are in tight cash flow and expected to have no cash flow for 3 months of the MCO, and only can 33.3% can only sustain up to April. Mentioned during pandemic, firm in Malaysia which face cash flow problem will face financial difficulties. Then financial difficulties will lead to the main concerns, which are like how they would have to pay the salary and pay the rent. And for the firm to keep operate, they need cash. So they initiate other resources to replace the income for them to keep operating. And then we will look at the data from how this firm managed to keep operate. So from all the data retrieved from the DOSM and Ernst & Young, it can be said that half of the firm in Malaysia are having cash flow problems. So the last one is the ripple effects of MCO during the pandemic. Cash flow problem will arise if there are financial difficulties. So during pandemic, MCO has restricted business activities, which leads to the decrease in income. So based on the diagram shows, the MCO has caused decrease in labor, reduced operation hours, and fall in demand. So these three has lead to the less revenue, and less revenue or less income is the main source of why the cash flow in firm are distracted.
So in conclusion, the main goal of our presentation that we are going to present are findings about the impacts of COVID-19 pandemics to the firms and SMEs in Malaysia. So our findings suggest in general that small and medium enterprises are affected greatly due to the pandemic, resulting in declines in revenues, fall in demand, shortage of supplies, risk of closure, termination, decrease of labor, as well as productivity, as well as lower cash flow. So our analysis say that SMEs they really need to step up the game. They need to be prepared with robust financial reserves, and emergency fund, as well as they need to be flexible in adopting the new landscape of economic, especially in this new era of COVID-19 where everything has been digitalized. And so, our finding is a little bit limited because there are a lot of limitations, because there are a few studies conducted about the impact of COVID-19, in particular to SMEs in Malaysia. So we hope that there are a lot of further studies need to be carried out in order to assess the effects of COVID-19 to Malaysia, firms and SMEs in short, medium, and long term. That's all from us. Thank you.